All right, everybody, I have on Autumn McKay here, and I'm excited to pick her mind, especially when it comes to screen time, because I've shared a little bit of that on here with you guys, but we like go back and forth in our house with it. And Jovi just recently learned how to not need our help anymore to find the shows that she wants to watch. So just like turning on the TV and finding Mickey Mouse Club. And I'm like, you can't just turn that on. You have to talk to me first, and we're not doing that right now. And so trying to set up boundaries around that. But I'm excited to talk to Autumn. She's been a childhood educator, author, parent, and has navigated the challenges that like we live in now, just screen time, parenting, and where we're placing just values, and not only in our home with our kids, but in ourselves as moms and in motherhood, because that can be tough. It's so easy to get pulled into the motherhood that is very overwhelming, and you feel like you're drowning, and it's just mom, 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 and you're like, what? And that's like the rhythm that we're in. So we're going to kind of divide and conquer all of these topics. So I'm really excited to chat with you today. So thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I'd love to just kind of start like a little bit of your history and what brought you to where you're at now.
So I have been married for 14 years in a couple of weeks, and we have three biological children, and we're foster parents as well. But before we had children, I was a teacher, and I taught in the classroom and online. And then once we started having children, I became a stay-at-home mom, and I really just kind of got bored with the same toys and the same wife duties and everything like that. And so I wanted to make my time at home with my kids intentional. And so I took my background from teaching, and I created activities for us to be able to learn like colors or ABCs or just the things that they were interested in. And so I made like a whole chart, and I put it on the fridge, and of what activity we were doing each day. And then my husband, he saw all the work that I had put in to our activity time, and he saw all that my kids were learning and the fun that we were having, and how it wasn't like boring anymore. And so he encouraged me to write books for other moms that were needed help with their kids. And so I reluctantly gave in, and after much encouraging, I wrote my first book 8 years ago, and then all the other books have been a accumulation of all the activities that my kids and I have done. So there's learning colors, learning ABCs. There's just like different themes of space or butterflies or cooking, and just all the things. And then there's like preparing for kindergarten, and then there's learning how to read. So yeah, and now I'm here.
Yeah, I think you said like a couple of keywords in there though. It was like it's so easy to get sucked into the monotony of the everyday as a stay-at-home mom, and just I'm sure like even in jobs it's like you just kind of have the same thing every single day, but it's like, man, like you have to keep the house running, you have to feed your kids, you have to clean up after breakfast, you have to clean up after lunch, like it's just like, yeah, the every single day. um and so that can definitely, you have to try to find the beauty in it, but it can definitely be boring, as you said, or even just like a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
um, when you're like, wow, I'm just interacting with my toddlers every day. This is so cool. But then you also said being intentional, like with your kids. And I think that that's where a lot of us have a hard time because of the overwhelm of the other things to keep the house running. And then it's just like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's sit down and color. But then you're using these activities really just to try to distract your kids so that you can try to get some stuff done. At least like that's what I do, instead of like being intentional and like really sitting down with them and enjoying it. So I think that there's like, I think everyone can relate to like the boringness
Hmm.
and then also the desire to want to be intentional.
Right.
Um, because there are days where I'm like, man, I was at home with the kids all day, but was I really with them
Right.
today? And there's a lot of days where it's like, no, I was doing a little bit of work here. I was prepping dinner. I was putting the baby down. I was trying to fold laundry. I would, like,
Hmm.
how much time are we really spending with them? So, I'd love to kind of talk about, I know you've talked about like screen time before and just kind of your journey through that as a mom, because I also know that that's something that cuts into my intentional time that I could be spending with my kids, or that distracting time from me like just getting tasks done so that I could maybe have intentional time. But what did that look like for you when you were like learning um to see the boringness, but make it intentional with your family?
So yeah, it was kind of like twofold for this screen for us. Um, we so my oldest, he is 10, and we when he was like a year and a half or two or whatever, we just like assumed that like screens were okay and good, and like how like companies advertise that they are educational and things like that. We just went with that because we didn't know any better, and they were still so new at that time. Um, and we started to notice that when we would give him like screen time, playing like ABC games on my phone or something, and we would go to take it away, he would completely melt down. We're like, hold up, like we're not going to fight this every time. Um, so we just wanted to avoid the meltdowns. So we kind of just got rid of the screens at that point. Um, like we still will watch movies and stuff every now and then. And but it was also our kids, we noticed were fighting for our attention over our phones. So they felt like they were like fighting for us to pay attention to them over paying
Mm-hmm.
attention to our phone. And so that was a real eye opener. So they would like uh, act out or have a tantrum or like try to pull our phone away to like see what we were doing or try to be on it because we were on it. So it must be important. So they wanted to be on it as well. So that those two things were real eye openers to us and made us like look at what we were doing with our time to be intentional with our kids. Um,
Yeah, yeah. And I think that that's something that, again, people can relate to because I don't remember who I was interviewing. It was probably like 2 or 3 years ago now. And we touched on that a little bit because um it's you're more irritable with your kids, like when you're on your phone and then they are
mhm.
kind of vying for your attention because you're distracted and they're like, Mom, 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 Mom. And then that's when you're more like, what? Instead
Right.
of like paying attention to like what they're trying to do or show you. And it definitely is like a huge distractor. It can, and then you wonder why your kid also wants to like be on screens all day. And it's like,
Right.
well, how much time are you on screens? It's, the monkey see, monkey do. Like if you guys sit down to dinner and you're just on your phones, like your kid's also going to want to be on
Mm-hmm.
something or watching something instead of taking that time to like be together as a family. So I can relate to that and I get caught in it a lot, like where one of my kids will be talking to me and I'm like, uh-huh, uh-huh. And then I'm like, I'm not even paying attention. Like, Liz, come on. Like, and then I'm like, okay, sorry, what were you showing me?
Right.
Like they notice that and they're definitely watching and they absorb it way more than we think that they do. And you
Mm-hmm.
you said like, oh, they're like mom thinks that it's important, so it must be important. And like probably some of the mixed messages that we're sending them, like this is more important than what you're trying to show me right now or what you're trying to do. And I think that that's like really good accountability, at least for me to like be like, what is more important, and
Right.
to
Yeah.
to take notice in that. Okay, so I'd love to like to dive into some of your other stuff here because you've written these early childhood educational books, and um I know that there's like so much different parenting things out there, and there's so much advice and tools. I'm definitely not a my kids love educational stuff, especially my oldest. We have like a little kindergarten book for her, and she will sit and do that. No problem. But I'm not like the mom of like, I'm gonna make this cool sensory bin for you to play in and all of those things, because that's just overwhelming to me. I don't want to clean up a bunch of rice. Like I don't want to like,
Yeah.
do all this like good for the moms that like do those fun things. I'm like, here's a pair of kid-friendly scissors and a piece of paper, go at it. So, um, so I'd love to just kind of talk about like, just some of the pressures of like that parenting, but also the pressure that maybe we're putting on kids of like achieving, because like there is all this information out there. So it's like, um, hey, there's 4-year-olds who are reading, so now I need to get my kid to read. Like where can we just kind of like be, I guess, like in parenthood with that?
So I think that there is like a happy balance between like pushing your child with educational activities, but also like allowing them just to be kids. Um, so I'm reading this book called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, and it talks about like phones and the effect of phones on kids now, because we haven't had much data because they were still so new. But in the book, it also talks about a free play, like child-based play, and how it's kind of like gone away because
Mhm.
of screens. And so it's talking about how we need to let our kids be kids and just like go outside and use their imagination again. However, I think that also having uh, some intentional learning time with your child is beneficial because um, first of all, it creates a good relationship between you and your child. You get to do those activities together. And so, like, you're sitting there, you're learning what they're interested in, and you get to do activities based on what they're interested in, and you see like what their strengths are. You see areas that you might want to help them um, achieve more in because they're not quite as strong in that area. But yeah, so I think having a balance between the two is really good. So if you're not like a crafts and messy mom kind of person, then that's fine. Like I have workbooks that are cut or trace or things like that. And then in my activity books, many of the activities are low prep because I know myself, I did not have like a ton of free time to like make this extravagant thing for my kid to only do it for 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Um, so many of the activities are low prep, which means it takes like 1 or 2 minutes to put them together, and you get to do the activity together for like 10 minutes or 5 minutes, however long it holds their attention, and then they go play. Um, and you can always like circle back around and like, talk about what you did together, what you learned, what your favorite part was, and things like that with your kids. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I know that it's like so easy to like do the comparison thing too, but like I think that we are missing out on that free play a lot. And I can't remember what country it is. Oh man, I'm gonna butcher all of these statistics now, but I'll find the exact ones and put it in the show notes because there's a country in Europe, and I don't remember if it's either like Finland or the Netherlands. I don't remember. They don't start school until 7 years old. And by the age of 15, they are like 12 or 15, that somewhere in there, they're like beyond, they have like higher scores than like other people because they want them to have that free play. They want them to just like use their imagination, do the things that they're interested in. they're not putting kids in school at 3 or 4. They're waiting until 7. But also they live in a system that like sets them up to be able to do that, which I know is not the case here in America, but they are starting school later, and then their test scores are like higher later, and they're not like behind at all. When they start at 7, they're the same as like other first graders. They're not having, because they're learning those skills too, like
Yeah.
at home or in daycare or wherever they're at. But you know, their scores are higher later. So I thought that that was like super interesting.
Yeah.
Because I do think that like we put that pressure, um, on kids, and where I grew up, I guess like at least when I was where I grew up and where I lived, there were some kids that went to preschool, but it like wasn't really a thing.
Right.
Like I didn't start school until kindergarten. There was a preschool at my school for 4-year-olds. But it wasn't like as common as like you just put your kid in kindergarten. But now where I live, everybody puts their kids in the 3-year-old preschool. And so everybody was like asking me when my daughter turned 3 if I was going to put her in preschool. And I was like, no. And I'm not like against it. I'm like, I just don't know that way, like
Right.
we do other activities and things, but also I just don't think socially she was ready.
Hmm.
Like, she's very clingy, and my second one's a different beast. She's a different beast, but um I didn't know that it was like a thing that people necessarily do. Although I don't think that that always comes with like pressure of like, you know, you have to succeed or like mark these certain things.
Right.
But it's just like interesting how like different areas kind of all do things different, or how we grew up is also different, and how we're like implementing that like with our kids. Um, but I love that like you don't have to like send them to preschool to do these things, that like you can start these things at home, and help them learn and like be a part of
Yeah. And it,
that part
and
of it.
like, and it's not, it doesn't take like a lot of time. Like you don't have to have a structured like preschool time at home. Like normally a preschool time is what, 3 or 4 hours. But like these activities, I did them with my kids all the way until pre-K, and we only did like 10 minutes a day, 10, maybe 20. Like that
Mhm.
was it. And they were happy. They loved to do it. And then they went and played, or sometimes they would be like, okay, what can we do now? Like what other activity? Or we would just sit and read together. Like yeah, it doesn't have to be like an elaborate plan, and it's just something fun for you to like break up your day and provide something of interest for your kid and you. And yeah, no
Mhm.
pressure.
Yeah. So another thing that kind of you talk about is building resilience in families. So I'd love for you to share that with us a little bit.
Yeah. So we have kind of learned, like through parenting, how to help our kids to build resilience. Like, because obviously they're going to face challenges in their life. And we hope that giving them those steps will help them be able to face them head on and not um, struggle with any challenges that arise. So one way that we have done that as a family is we all go around each night at dinner and say something that we're grateful for. That way that they can always come back to gratitude. My husband and I, we didn't learn about practicing gratitude until our adult life. And so we want to kind of give our kids a head start. So each night at dinner, we go around and say one thing that we're thankful for. And it's just a real good way for our kids to like remember the little things and the big things. And sometimes their answers are silly, where they're thankful for the ketchup for their French fries, or sometimes their answers are very sweet, where um, they say like, I got to sleep with my sister in the fort last night. And so that's one way that we help our kids build resilience. And another way that we help them is we try not to solve their problems for them. If they have a problem, we talk them through it. We ask them what kind of solutions they think are best. And we kind of just listen and let them like walk through the problem themselves and kind of come up with a solution themselves. Obviously, if they're like 3 and 4, then they're going to need guidance to come up with those solutions. But as they get older, they'll start to come up with those solutions themselves. Like this morning, my kids were fighting over kinetic sand. And so I had them talk through each, like, who had it first, what do you think we can do to solve this problem so we can all play the kinetic sand? And so they came up with the solution while I just stood there and kind of like was the mediator, but really they solved the problem themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. I definitely need to work on that. I feel like it's easier for me to with some of those things I feel like I'm good with, but once like the younger one starts to like come in and like get picked on more, then it's like easier to like just side with that one. But now like I'm realizing like my 2-year-old can be like a little instigator. So she's like, the 3-year-old tries to get the 2-year-old in trouble. So I've had to talk to her about that. Like she'll be like, "Doula, say the word stupid." And I'm like, hey, I heard you say that to her. If she says that, you're gonna be the one that gets in trouble because you're telling her to do it. So she'll like, I'll be like, hey, don't do that. And she'll be like, go do it. And I'm like, no, no, no. So she tries to get the other one in trouble, but the 2-year-old tries to do it now too. Like she'll like scream as if like something crazy happened and like nothing did, like
Right.
trying to like get the older one in trouble. Um, so I love that you just kind of like talk to them about it and like help them work through it themselves, because it's also, if you didn't see exactly what happened too, then it's like, how can
Right.
you like help the situation, or you just take it away, or, like that also builds so much resilience because they're learning how to problem solve and they're learning like how to like come up with solutions and work things out, which I feel like now kids are just having parents do everything for them, to the point that like teachers and school aren't even allowed to like do anything because the parents come in and they're like, no, like my child would never do that. My child's
Right.
this, that. And it's like, no, your child needs to learn that there's like natural consequences to actions, but they're not even learning that anymore because
Right.
parents
Yeah.
are there. So then when they get out in the real world, they don't know how to function. So teaching them these skills at a young age, I could just see like how valuable that is, and like such a good reminder for me to like, even though they're 2 and 3.5, they can start to work through those things on their own.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'd love to kind of talk about, you mentioned gratitude and how you guys didn't really learn that until your adult life. So how have you taken that kind of into motherhood? Like I mentioned in the beginning, it's so easy to have the overwhelm, the monotony, the boringness, the overwhelm. And we also kind of live in this culture of, it's like good because we're validating how hard motherhood can be, but then it's also easy to fall victim to it. And so like trying to find the balance in there, and I feel like gratitude could be like such a good tool for that.
Yeah. So about 6, almost 7 years ago, somewhere around there, I got overwhelmed with all the motherhood things. I just started the business. I was writing. I had 3 kids under 4. I had all the household duties, like all the things, and so I was feeling overwhelmed and I was getting burned out, and I just didn't feel like myself anymore. And so I would wake up like every morning just in a negative mood, and kind of just expecting the day to be bad. And I was kind of snappy with my husband and my kids, and I didn't like myself, and I knew that something was wrong, but I didn't really know what was wrong. And I eventually learned that it was mom burnout. And at the time, since we were starting a business, my husband, he was listening to a lot of like entrepreneur podcasts, and he realized that many entrepreneurs start their day with gratitude.
Mhm.
And so he gets up early and goes to the gym. And so before he goes to the gym, he started like practicing gratitude, where he'll just like think about 3 things he's grateful for that day. And I started to notice a shift in his mindset, with how he was like treating me and the kids. And in the 8 years of marriage that we had at that time, he had never done like a single dish in that time. And he started like unloading the dishwasher for me in the mornings, because it was a chore I don't like. And so I was like, hold up, what is going on here? Because you have never done this before. And so he was telling me about how he has started to practice gratitude. And so I was like, well, if it's changed you like this much, then maybe I'll try it. And so I started trying to practice gratitude in the morning. So I'd wake up before the kids got up, and I would just think about 3 things I was thankful for that day. And at the time, it was just like the big things, like my house, my family, um, things like that. And it, started to notice over a couple of weeks that it was helping. Like I was starting to look for things to be grateful for the next day. So throughout the day, I was looking for things that were positive in my day. And then I, as I was practicing gratitude more, I noticed that as a mom and a girl, I have very spaghetti brain. So one thing would lead to another thought, and then that thing would lead to another thought. And so I, to help me stay focused, I started journaling. And so I would write down the 3 things I was grateful for. And that really helped me to stay focused and to think about what I was grateful for. And it was also a really good way to like see my journey um, over the years of like, I started out very broad gratitude, but then now like it's very, I guess, uh, precise of like things I'm grateful for. And it's just different seasons have different things. And so it's really good. And so based on that journey, I made a gratitude journal for moms. It was for myself, but also for other moms struggling with mom guilt and mom burnout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what a great tool. I've also heard like so many entrepreneurs doing the gratitude thing, and I've been reading about it for over a decade, and I've still like never done it. So probably should. I know that that's a great tool and like such a powerful way just to shift your mindset. Like who would have thought, like just with your husband doing that like that it translates into actions, that it translates into your day. And I think what's held me back, like what you said, it started broad and then became precise. I feel like what's held me back is because I'm like, well, every single day I'm just gonna be like, I'm thankful for my husband, I'm thankful for my kids, I'm thankful for a roof over my head, but I'm sure that it, like you said, gets more precise. Like maybe it starts that way, but with
Right.
everything you have to start somewhere. So it's what a great tool. I need to look into that again because I'm just, been hearing about it for over a decade. Maybe I should finally do it. Can you just kind of touch a little bit on before we wrap up, just like navigating motherhood and the entrepreneurship? Because you've said that you've come out with these books, these tools. I know so many people listening, we kind of live in this great time where moms can make money from home and you can have this side hustle, but it's also incredibly draining. Like I'm constantly trying to figure out how to get work in for my podcast, for my course, for my doula work, and try to be a mom and try to like not feel like I'm on my phone while my kids are saying my name, and trying to like balance it because And also not try to be like stay up till midnight. Like that way,
Right.
like never works for me. It's like, okay, so I can start working on this at 10 p.m. Like where I'm at in life, that's not gonna work for me because then my son's up to nurse at 12 p.m. And then,
Right.
like I can't function on 4 hours of sleep. I don't want to function. It's not good for your health. So like what did that look like for you when you were doing all of this?
Yeah, so I needed a lot of balance to be able to do all of the things. And so a few key things that helped me balance were having routines or schedules in place. So the kids have a schedule of like when lunchtime is, when nap time is, when playtime is, like all the things. That has always been like a huge help for us since they came home from the hospital. Um, and just they know what to expect, we know what to expect, and it's very helpful. And it doesn't have to be like, okay, at 9 a.m we're going to have breakfast. It's just like kind of like a flow of the day of okay, we've had breakfast, okay, now it's playtime, and then we'll have snack time, and then we'll have learning time, kind of just like a flow time. And so that's very helpful because then you're not being, what's next, what are we doing now, because they know what comes now. And then so I would put in like work time for yourself if you are trying to balance work and being a mother as well. I know when my kids were younger, nap times were a very beneficial way to work. So yeah, those were my big work times. And then the second thing I have uh, that has helped me balance work life and motherhood and all the things is to delegate. So that's asking for help if I need help. So asking like friends or family um, for help if they need to come and just like watch your kids for a couple of hours. Like grandparents love to do that. So I'm sure they're willing to help. Um, and I know as a mom, that was always hard for me. I felt like if I was asking someone for help, then I was failing. And so I had to kind of like realize that people want to help. And if they're asking you like how they can help you, like if they need to bring you a dinner or watch the kids for a couple hours, that means they actually want to do it. So let them do it. Um, and so, yeah, I've had to learn that that's okay. And it actually is very helpful. And then I've also had to learn through delegating, like to say no to things. Um, so I'm a very like, yes person. I feel bad and guilty for saying no to people. And I've had to realize like I can't do it all. So I would get zero sleep, or I would just like run myself crazy and not be able to do the things I actually need to do. So I've had to learn to say no to things, whether that's volunteering in my kids' class or um, going to a family event, like because it conflicts with the schedule or something like that, then I have to say no. And then uh, my kids are old enough now that they can pitch in, and even like 2 and 3-year-old, they can pitch in and like clean up their toys or unload the silverware from the dishwasher. And my kids help now with like um, cooking dinner. They'll help prepare like parts of the dinner. And so as long as you like start teaching them that they can pitch in early on, then they'll want to pitch in more as they get older. And they feel so proud about all the things that they're helping with. Obviously, they're not going to do it to your standards, probably, but it's a very good skill that they can learn because they're going to need all of these skills when they are adults and move out of the house, which is a very scary thought. But yeah, so it's teaching them how to be a successful adult, but it also helps you. So yeah.
Yeah, that's good. We just started like saying no to stuff because my husband has like a huge family, and like last month there were so many parties like every single weekend for different things, and we just had so much going on, and so we ended up just saying no to everything because we were like, we can't right now. Like I was working on a big project, and the only time I could get a chunk of work done was when he was home on the weekend,
Mm.
and like we're trying to like, you know, our yard was overgrown with weeds. Like my husband's like, I have like a million weeds to pull. Like we just literally, and he started getting back into his busy season for work. So we also just didn't have like family time or any downtime. So we were just like, you know what? We're just going to say no to everything this month. And like, we don't normally do that. We
That's
normally say
awesome.
yes to everything. And we are like, you know what? Sorry, we can't. So yeah, that it can be hard, but then once you start doing it, it's, and there's people who want to go to everything, and that's
Right.
great. And we like to go to stuff as well. It was just the season and I was on call for a birth. So I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to get called in. So I need to like get this work done when I can. I think that setting those boundaries can maybe be tough at first, but it's also, you have to put yourself, your family, and your priorities first. And then asking for help, of course, is like always a big key too, that we're meant to live in community and to have,
Mm-hmm.
rely on each other, and so do if you can. So I love that. Before we wrap up, where can people follow you, download, or get your books and resources at?
Yeah, so I have a free gift for all of your listeners. It's called the Ultimate Mom Saver Activity Bundle, and it's 6 free activities from one of my books, and then 6 free coloring pages from one of my husband's books. And so, if you want to start like a learning time, then you can grab that, and I'll give you the link so you can share it with your listeners. And if you want to find me and more about my books, then you can go to bestmomideas.com. And then I'm also on Facebook and Instagram um, under Best Mom Ideas.
Great. I will include all the links in the show notes. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and energy today.
Yeah, thank you so much.